This is a critical juncture for Canada, and it's high time we face the harsh realities of our situation. While Trudeau flits around with his carbon tax, inflating the cost of living for every Canadian, families across the country are ensnared in a housing crisis that's spiraling further out of control. How can anyone justify a tax that burdens citizens when basic necessities are becoming increasingly unaffordable? As we navigate this complex landscape, we're forced to witness a Prime Minister who can't even operate a toy train in a local store. Trudeau's recent toy store debacle isn't merely a moment of embarrassment. It's a glaring indication of a leader who has lost touch with the very populace he's meant to serve. Imagine the scene. Justin Trudeau enters a toy store, his trademark smile plastered on his face, attempting to charm the crowd. This is meant to be a harmless photo opportunity, a chance to showcase his relatability. But then, in a cringeworthy turn, he spots a shiny toy train set. With misplaced confidence, he picks up the controller, only for nothing to happen. The train remains motionless. In an instant, he transforms from a charismatic leader into a bumbling figure fumbling with buttons, desperately trying to regain some semblance of control. The whispers of the crowd morph into muffled laughter, and with each futile press of the button, Trudeau's face reddens. One onlooker aptly described the scene. It was like watching a deer caught in headlights. As the tension thickens in the store, Trudeau is confronted with pressing questions. "Hey, Minister, rates of scurvy are rising, yet you're removing the GST on pop and chips? What's the deal?" Instead of addressing the matter directly, Trudeau deflects, absurdly claiming that it doesn't increase costs. If he genuinely cared about the health of Canadians, he'd prioritize initiatives aimed at addressing health crises in remote communities instead of cracking light-hearted jokes to deflect criticism. His feeble quip, "I guess I won't be applying for a job as a train conductor anytime soon," elicits only a few pity chuckles. This further solidifies the perception that he's out of touch with reality. As he awkwardly exits the store, it's difficult not to view this cringeworthy episode as a metaphor for his entire administration. While Trudeau struggles with toy trains, real Canadian families are ensnared in a nightmarish housing crisis. The contrast could not be more jarring. How can a leader who fumbles with a simple toy train be expected to tackle the intricate economic issues facing the nation? From toy trains to housing disasters, Canada is careening off course. Families are grappling with crushing mortgage payments, and the stakes are alarmingly high. In the Greater Toronto Area, the average home price has soared to an astronomical $1.1 million, while the median income hovers at a mere $84,000. It's a recipe for disaster, and you don't need to be an economist to recognize that. Countless families wake up in cold sweats, staring down the barrel of $5,000 monthly mortgage payments. This isn't just a handful of unfortunate souls, this has become the grim reality for families nationwide. They're putting in longer hours, picking up second jobs, and still barely managing to stay afloat. Remember that dream home in Oakville, the one with the white picket fence? It just sold for a staggering $1.45 million, a shocking drop from its original listing of $2 million. It's like watching your life savings evaporate before your eyes. And now, as new listings flood the market, desperate homeowners scramble to sell before it's too late. Experts are sounding alarm bells, warning that Canada teeters on the precipice of a colossal housing crash. This isn't a mere market correction. We're staring down the barrel of a meltdown that could obliterate the savings of an entire generation. And where's Trudeau while this chaos unfolds? Apparently playing with toy trains. It's a fitting metaphor for a government that's utterly derailed when it comes to confronting the real issues facing Canadians. Their policies have poured gasoline on this housing inferno, leaving everyday people to watch their dreams go up in flames. Forget about international brain drain. Canada is grappling with an internal migration crisis that's tearing the fabric of the nation apart. Families are fleeing major cities in droves, abandoning urban life for greener pastures. This isn't a mere trickle. It's a mass exodus reshaping the entire country. The Greater Toronto Area, once a beacon of hope for ambitious Canadians, now witnesses families packing up and leaving.
Why?
Because they simply can't afford to remain. Housing prices are skyrocketing, and the cost of living is soaring. One family encapsulated their struggle. "We were working ourselves to the bone just to keep a roof over our heads. It wasn't living. It was merely surviving." This urban flight creates ripple effects across the country. Small towns and rural areas are suddenly experiencing booms but are struggling to cope with the influx. Infrastructure becomes strained, local services are overwhelmed, and those quaint little towns aren't so affordable any longer as demand drives prices up. But what happens to the cities left behind? As families and businesses flee, urban centers may face economic decline, giving rise to a whole new set of problems for whoever is in charge. And where's Trudeau in all this? While Canadians vote with their feet, our Prime Minister seems more preoccupied with photo ops than tackling the root causes of this crisis. His toy store mishap symbolizes a government that's lost touch with the pressing issues facing everyday people. The clock is ticking on Trudeau's time in office. His recent series of political blunders reads like a comedy of errors, but for struggling Canadians, it's a nightmare. Recall the SNC-Lavalin scandal? The WE charity debacle? These aren't isolated incidents, they're indicative of a government in free fall. Trudeau's carefully crafted public persona as a progressive champion is crumbling faster than sandcastles in a tsunami. As he poses for selfies and makes grand promises, his policy failures pile up like unpaid bills. The carbon tax is hitting families hard without making a dent in emissions, and his pledge to balance the budget is a cruel joke as we drown in red ink with no lifeline in sight. But that's not all. Trudeau's foreign policy has devolved into chaos, managing to alienate both China and India and leaving Canada isolated on the global stage. At home, the economy is sputtering like an old car on its last legs. Inflation is soaring, and families are struggling to put food on the table. Political analysts are not holding back. One expert noted that Trudeau is increasingly perceived as out of touch with the struggles of ordinary Canadians, especially as families drown in debt due to rising mortgage rates and housing prices. It's a damning indictment of a leader who promised sunny ways but delivered storm clouds. Can Trudeau orchestrate a miraculous comeback? It seems less likely by the day. His approval ratings are plummeting, and election projections paint a bleak picture for the Liberal Party. The writing is on the wall. Trudeau's political career hangs by a thread. As Canadians observe their Prime Minister fumbling and stumbling, the question on everyone's mind is, how much longer can this charade continue? With each new crisis and each tone-deaf response, Trudeau's grip on power weakens.